Hi, and welcome to the recording of how to pick colors for your own art. I recorded this workshop because I think it's a really good starting point if you're new to colors or if you're new to painting. And I hope I answered all your questions, but if I haven't, obviously feel free to get in touch with me and you know how, Instagram or email, whatever it's easiest for you. Let's just go ahead with the recording and hope you enjoy. How to pick colors for your art. So I decided to put together this workshop because sometimes people ask really how do you pick colors? How do you choose this color to go with the next one? And it's very interesting because for me it was an automatic thing that I kind of had to discover through studying afterwards. I'm Elisa. I'm an Italian artist. I've been living in Ireland for more than 10 years now. I'm an industrial designer as per my graduation, as well as the head of design for an Irish company. And for me, really, it's always been about colors. Everything I've always done, all my artworks have always really been about colors. And when I asked about my design and art obsession to my parents, my father said, for you, it's always and only been all about colors. And I found it very interesting. So I decided to put it there because people get to art in very different ways. And even when I was a 1-year-old baby, for me, it was just grabbing colors and painting with colors. So get your colors out. I have prepared a few things, but obviously colors are extremely personal thing and they are something we are drawn towards to in a very specific way. We love certain things and we tend to stay away from others. And this is just like a really natural way we are. In the same way we choose people to hang out. It's a natural thing you do, and also the way you dress. It's just this. It's exactly the same thing. But what I find the most interesting thing is why you're drawn to certain colors. I had a blue phase in my life, and for me, it was just really trying to find a color that was extremely calming for me and that could just give me more time to think about a lot of other elements in the composition rather than the color itself. And at the same time, while I do love all colors, I tend to stay away from the right hand side of the spectrum if you look at this image. So I'm all about blues and pink and white and dark black or red, kind of towards pink, while I just really stay away from the other side. It's not that I don't like the colors, it's just that I feel more comfortable painting with those colors. This becomes extremely important because when you are creating something, you will mix different colors. And if we look really at the color wheel, the way you get your colors is just mixing others. So for example, in my case, I don't like green, even though I love it, but I don't want to see it in my artworks. I will not mix yellow and blue, so then it becomes green. In general, the more knowledge you have about the color wheel and how colors are really created and generated, the more confidence then you will have in how to put them together and what works for you and what doesn't. There are a billion of rules in terms of how to combine colors, how to put them together, what to avoid, but they are extremely personal. And at the end of the day, you do you. And if you want to mix two colors that people say they don't match, doesn't matter. It's your own specific color composition. There are more elements when it comes to colors. It's not just the color itself and how you combine it with another color, but also scale of the color, the tone, the tint, the shade. There are so many different variations. So one thing that I find extremely interesting, and I actually discovered only looking at the rules after I've been doing it for a really long time, is that when you look at an amazing composition from even the 1400 or something extremely modern, it falls down into a very simple kind of construction and composition of the colors. So if you pick your main color, then you can add black and you can add white and you can make the color more shaded. This is amazing, obviously, if you're drawing human figure or real elements, but it comes extremely handy as well when you work with abstract art. Obviously, adding white would be the same thing. It defines where the light comes in, as well as adding an extra color in your own palette. I actually do not have a lot of colors in my own studio. I have a billion of variations of the same color because I keep adding a little bit of white and a little bit of white more, and so on. I found 5 colors I really love, and then everything else kind of falls in between. So the color formula. This is, as I said, something that I've always done. For me, it was a natural thing to do, but only when you look at the rules, you really understand, oh, okay, this makes sense because it's this and this and that. Any color you want, I picked blue here, and then you add a little bit of white. You can create 2-3 colors more, and then you pick a color that creates contrast. And this is why in the very beginning I showed you the color spectrum, because for me here yellow wouldn't work, because then somehow the colors will mix and green is going to come up, and that's not something I want to see. But at the same time, a million of colors that can be a contrast to blue, and it's just really your extremely personal choice. But then what I do here again is add more white to the contrast color. So basically I have 2 colors and I just added white. And in the same way, like this, I have 5 colors. And then what I always do is throw in I call it wow color, but it's not wow at all. It's just wow because it doesn't have anything to do with the others. And in this case, I picked this kind of really light turquoise. And this is the formula. And you can apply it to anything you see, and you can make it more complicated, more simple. You can only have 3 colors and completely forget about white, or have the main color and add white 10 times. Actually, white is the main color that goes in basically all artists' studios, unless you paint only with black. But really, white is the color that you will use in any of your compositions, because it creates a gradient in a very simple way that will allow then a transition as well with other colors. I made it more simple, but you can also make it more complicated, and this is completely up to you. I'll show you later on a couple of things I have here that are my artworks, as well as other artworks I have collected. And it's kind of always the same, but main color, 3 colors, adding white, main color again, 3 colors adding white, and so on. You can add 10 main colors and then add always a little bit of white. And you don't have to stop at 3. You can add 5 variations with white. You can add 10, you can add 1. Doesn't really matter. But the way you combine colors is always pick your main color, find a color that is contrasting, and then pick a wow color. Obviously, having a color wheel, it's a great way to understand more of colors and understand how, what sort of colors you can get. Color wheel always comes in 2 sides. So one side you have the main colors, and then you can, if you add white, then this is what happens. And then on the other side, you have, let's put it on yellow. So I have yellow, and then if I add, what is this, red, and I will have orange. So this is always a great way to just understand more of colors. And if you are unsure about what to add or not to add, this is the best way to go with. So I said I was going to show you a couple of things. I'm going to show you first stuff that is not mine. And first one is a monochromatic, is a feather. And again, it falls in exactly the same category. So main color, blue, and then there is a lighter blue, and then white. So now the light is probably not great here, but so there are 3 colors here. Well, yeah, 3. So there is the color of the hair, and then added white to create other elements. There is the kind of darker, what is it, like a red-ish color, and then the wow color here again. And it's always like this. Another example from an Australian artist is, this is an abstract, and there is a bit of a reflection here, but it will be the same. So main color blue added with white, more white in other elements. Here there is a, this is like a ochre sort of color, and then my surprise element, the wow color here. It doesn't really matter how complicated artworks get, but it's always the same sort of style. And then I'm gonna show you a couple of things I have here that are mine. I said I don't like green, but I sometimes it happens, and this was exactly what I meant in the very beginning, when if you know exactly what sort of colors you want to avoid, then don't mix the colors that will generate that specific color. So main color was blue. I added a little bit of white, and then I had my surprise element again. It was yellow. This was acrylic pouring, obviously, so it kind of everything mixes together, but I was okay with it because in the end the composition was something I really liked. The surprise element, or the wow color, doesn't matter, the name really doesn't necessarily always have to be on the main part of your artwork. Okay, so this is a composition from the February Art Challenge. Main color, other color, simplified towards white, and this way here as well. Then there is obviously a white element that is kind of there to create a contrast, and then the surprise element will be on the side. As I said, doesn't matter as long as it's something that is creating an extra dimension in a way, an extra element of interest in the artwork. Some things that are, I think, extremely important are, one, always test your colors on paper. So when it's dry, you know exactly what it looks like. For example, this color, I fell in love with it in the bottle, then on paper it's not great. But this is always a go way to see what colors are doing and how they dry up. Also, not all colors have the same luminosity and light reflection, so it helps you to know the colors even more. And then just to go again on the colors and adding white, as I said, I have a billion of colors here, but I took one and I was working on not here, one composition that isn't finished, but main color again, this is a super dark purple and it's almost black. And then because this color is too dark for me, but the starting point is amazing, I always create a jar. My jars are always a bit messy, but with a bit of white, and then this is with a lot of white. So I always have them, kind of always, sometimes I have them, and it's great because if I'm working across an artwork, then I don't have constantly to create color. When it comes to the wow color, to be honest, really the sky is the limit, and your wallet is the limit as well, because there are amazing colors that could be brought in to create this wow effect. Some of them might be extremely expensive, maybe not worth going there. But I have personally found few colors that I have in my studio, and I always have them because I know that even if I mix them with other stuff, then they will always look great. This is one of my favorites. It's a Pebeo blue iridescent green. It just really depends on the artwork and the composition. Obviously, white is obviously another element that can be used for your artwork, as well as gold. That could be something amazing to add as an extra element. Silver, and really any color that works for you. I just wanted to show you what I meant before when I was talking about the different sort of compositions. That's the monochromatic one. This one has exactly the same rule I explained before. So dark blue, and then I just add a little bit of white to create a lighter blue. And then I have the central part there in pink, and the different pinks there are just really created always by using the same pink. And then my wow element here would be this color, which is extremely strong and doesn't even come across in camera in the right way. It's impossible to take pictures of it. And then on the other side, where the sun is kind of really shining over it, You probably seen it on my Instagram page. It was a really long project, but this project has exactly the same rule. Every color has been reduced in intensity with white, and then I combined all the colors, and here my surprise element is white. So it doesn't really matter how many colors you have, 1, 3 here, or well, that's kind of a rainbow, so potentially all of them, but the rule applies always in the same way. Now, I think if you guys have any questions, I'm really happy to answer. I also do have a few questions that came in from people that I know couldn't join. If you have any questions, you can either speak up or leave them in the chat. Hi.
How much planning do you do when you plan out these paintings? Because obviously, if you're like making jars of the different shades and tints that you want, I assume you put a good bit of planning into it. And like if you have that, you've got your like paints kind of planned out in terms of your main and your additional color, and then the kind of wow color. Yeah. So how much time do you plan out when you're creating a painting, or like do you like sketch it out first, or do you just like
Yeah.
pick color?
So for me, it's just about the color. So when I start, I kind of have a rough idea of the amount of colors that I want to see on the canvas. But I know that other people would be completely different in the way they approach the project, and they have a clear idea, or maybe they don't, and they discover it while they go along. When I'm painting, usually I learned it in the hard way. Always prepare more color than what you need, because you will never be able to recreate exactly the same color. So that's why I have jars all
Yeah, I
over,
have that
really.
problem all the time. So the jar, I've
Yeah.
like written that down and I'm like, go buy some jars.
Yeah, well, I actually like all the jars I use, they are either honey or beetroot, or really like stuff that is in the house. Then obviously clean them up, and then the only trick you would need to know is that sometimes the color dries up on the top, so it becomes a bit hard to open. Just put them in water for like 5 minutes, and it doesn't even have to be hot water. Like, it just makes it so much easier.
Okay.
But while I'm talking, I have like really 20 jars that are looking at me, from projects that I either started, that are kind of going, or even things that I finished up. And the good thing is, when I know an artwork is finished, then I do have the color and I can mix it with something else. I can add a bit more white and kind of go back from the very beginning from that. Obviously, the bigger the artwork, the more planning goes into the amount of color you need to have. But yeah, I found that using jars, or even using the original container, it's really a good solution for me. You can also buy really fancy containers, but to be honest, you know, it's just really up to you. I found it much easier, and also in a way they're reusable. You wash them, so it's always good. Then I had a few questions that came in. The first one was, how do you decide what colors to use for a specific part of your artwork? I find it extremely interesting for these questions, because when I'm painting, to be honest, for me it's a natural thing. It just happens. But when I look at them in retrospective, I always notice that there is a sort of a constant theme in the way I lay down my colors, and it's always something that goes. If you look at that, it's always something that develops diagonally, and also the other one over there is a diagonal there and another little bit. So I kind of like to have a diagonal element and then something that kind of distracts you from it. So that would be, obviously depends also on what you exactly you're painting. If you're painting an abstract artwork, if you're painting people, it's very different. I tend to use colors as a way to balance really the full artwork, because in my artworks there is nothing else apart from colors. Then a super interesting question came in, and how do you take negative space into consideration when picking colors? And I have two artworks here, and the question is really like, it doesn't matter in a way, because it's whether using white or black or any other color in terms of your support, It's just the colors that you decide to put on top, as long as they don't clash with the paper. So if this paper was black, I obviously wouldn't be able to use black lines. I would have to use something that creates a contrast. But then in the same way, I've chosen all the other colors in the during the workshop. This is the same way. So main color, and then instead of adding white here, I added a little bit of yellow. So it's kind of a yellow orange composition. And then again, I have a surprise element. It's not really visible, but it's always the gold element. And so this was one that kind of really started with negative space. And then this is another one that kind of, I don't know which way is up and which way is down, doesn't matter. But it's the same thing. It's just that here I created this negative space, while the other one was just really a composition like that. So here I picked my colors, and I obviously picked a contrast color here, white, that would make the rest kind of stand out. And then the last question that came in was, what color brands do I use, and do they make a difference? Not really. Yes and no. The colors you have will impact the quality, obviously, of the colors. So if you invest in something extremely good, and by good I don't mean like thousands, but depending also on the location where you are. Sorry, the ice cream truck. Yeah, so it depends really what's the budget, what you want to spend. When I started painting in Ireland, I started using golden acrylics, but I found the material I could get here was always in very small containers, and I got very annoyed with it because it just generates a crazy amount of plastic, and I don't want to have, and I don't want to generate. So I switched to Amsterdam acrylics, which is really, really good brand. And they have these containers, they are like 500 ml. As I said in the very beginning, I do have very few colors. So probably because I've already done my testing on what I like, what I don't like, I already know what the colors that I want to get are. So I invest in getting good quality for them. If you don't want to do that, that's absolutely fine. There are tons of brands based on where you are, budget, and so many variations. The cheaper the quality, the less intense and bright the color will be. But if you're just starting out, that's great. That's really the entry level for everybody. And then I do definitely spend a little bit more for the wow colors that I want and that I know that I will use in my studio. There is a color that I don't know if I will be able to find here. Well, yes, as this is a golden acrylic, but as I said, like, this is super, super tiny, but I can find it in a bigger package here. So this is it. And to be honest, this is really, really good. Like, it's worth the investment, but at the same time, it's only a kind of wow color for me, and I wouldn't paint full thing, a big canvas with this. It would be impossible. So yeah, these were the questions that came in, unless there is anything else online. I really hope this really helps clarify a little bit more colors. To be honest, I would love to do like a 3 hours, 5 hours workshop, because there is always so much to talk about when it comes to colors. And this was just a lightweight sort of introduction to really the full structure of a lot of paintings anyway. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for watching the recording. If you have any question, as I said in the very beginning, please get in touch. And I hope you have a really colorful day. Bye bye.